Hey all, this is Scott here. Well, here I have a C96 Mauser. It's a replica made by a company called Denix. They're out of Spain. This is actually a kit that I bought from a company that makes prop replicas online. It's a company called Blaster Factory, aka Field Marshal, aka War Machines. This is for a Han Solo DL-44 hero model from the Star Wars A New Hope film. And this comes with everything you see here. You've got the replica of the C96 Mauser, which it's going to need quite a bit of work done to it for modifications. I think I'm going to strip off the bluing and do some Birchwood Casey Aluminum Black for the finish. It appears to have some wood grips on it, but I think they're going to need some reshaping done on them because they don't really have really good fit on the grips, but we'll see. It may just need some adjusting. The barrel is pre-cut down to accept the flash hider and the this is just a sleeve for the bull barrel. That's all going to need to be refinished in black. We've got the crossbar and scope mount up here. And this is a replica of a German sniper scope. And it looks like they did a pretty good job on it. It already came pre-assembled. And the heat sink right here, that goes on the front right here. That is a, it seems to be made out of like anodized aluminum. They did a pretty good job from what it looks like. But yeah, I'm going to make this video as I progress on you know, putting this thing together and weathering it and stuff like that. Now, I do see a few things right off the bat that I'm going to have to do to this. First of all, this lanyard loop here, I'm going to have to grind that off. And for some reason, the company that makes these, Denix, this is the magazine floor plate right here. They didn't really add the detail going in on the bottom because for whatever reason, it should have been, the cut should have been cut down here and then kind of looped around and gone down and around. And a like a button or something like this placed here, which I'll probably just drill a small hole just to simulate a button. You know, the bolt up here, it's going to need to be ground down smooth. And, you know, there's the extractor mark that's supposed to be there is not present. I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm going to try my hand at trying to mill that out with a Dremel. But the rest of it looks okay. I mean, there's, you know, just like the sight right here, the rear sight adjustment, I'm going to strip that down. I'm probably going to leave that bare. I believe this is made out of Zamic, which is some sort of a zinc alloy. From what I've heard, I don't know a whole lot about it, but from what I understand, it's a fairly soft metal. So I'm going to take my time on this because I definitely don't want to mess this up. This cost about $300 for this kit. But it's going to be a lot of fun to do. I love doing stuff like this. I'm going to take my time, and this is just the beginning of the video showing you what comes in the package for the DL-44 A New Hope blaster. This is the hero model, not the Greedo killer. I kind of like this model a little bit better. That's just personal preference. But yeah, this does have moving parts. This is all metal. The hammer cocks back, fires. It looks like the firing pin back here came pre-ground down from Field Marshal. I'm probably going to do a little bit of grinding across here because I don't think that it's supposed to go up like this on the hammer. But I'm going to reference some production pictures from the original blaster to see, because I want to get this as close as I can to where I'd be happy with. I know the grips, I'm going to stain those a little bit darker because they're a little light for my liking. This Denix made by Spain. I've got some JB Weld. I'm going to fill in over that, sand it down to smooth it before I do the finishing on the metal. Probably going to strip this thing all the way down, but we'll see. This is just the beginning of this video I'm going to do, and I'm just going to add on as I progress on this. And but yeah, this is it, and I hope you guys enjoy watching me do this build. This is going to be a lot of fun. All right, so what we've got done so far is we went ahead and removed the rear sight. On a real Mauser, this rear sight here has a couple little bumps that come up right here to where you can look through the rear sight and line it up with the front sight. Well, on the real prop, those are not there, so we went ahead and took care of that, ground it down, being careful not to go down too far where the frame pin goes through to hold the rear sight on. On this Denix here, on each side, there are a couple little nubs, little raised nubs that came up right here where the pin goes through. On a real Mauser, those are not there. So we went ahead and ground those on down with the Dremel, as you can see on both sides. Of course, still got some work to do on this. This is just kind of a rough cut, but I'll be going over it with some sandpaper and some files to get it nice and smooth. The hammer, the Denix hammer did not look right. It had too much of a hump and came up too high on this, so I looked at some real C96 Mausers online and kind of shaped the rear hammer, or the hammer, accordingly to match up with a real C96. As I said, you still got a little bit more work to do on that to get it straightened out completely. But yeah, that's what we've got so far. I will be back in a moment to show you what I've got done next. All right, we're back about 24 hours later and about 12 hours worth of serious sanding, grinding, filing, buffing. Still not perfect, but it's pretty close to where I'm wanting to get it. So I'll tell you what I did and the type of problems that I ran into with this Denix. So this did come with wood grips. The problem is they did not line up very well. You could loosen up the screw and it stuck out a little further from the grip handle frame down here than what it did on one side. Like on this side, they bulged out too much back here, and on the other side, it bulged out too much over here. No matter how you adjusted it, that's just the way they were cut, and it was just kind of, I mean, it's a $100 replica, so, you can't expect, something perfect. So what I had to do is I had to sand off where it was too wide on one side or too wide on the other. Did a lot of adjusting, and I got them down to where they fit pretty nicely now. What I am going to do, I think I may stain them just a little bit darker because, I don't know, I think that they may be a little too light. But we'll see about that whenever I get further along with the gun. The other thing I did, we'll start with the trigger. The factory Denix trigger is too thick this way. So what I did is I took my Dremel and a sanding wheel and went back and forth inside there until I got it, down to where I think it looks a lot more like a real Mauser. Hammer, same thing.
The hammer on here, it had too much of a hump that kind of came up like this. Not quite that high, I'm exaggerating, but came up too high. So I took it down, looked at some photographs of some real Mausers, and kind of replicated that as much as I could. And I think I did a pretty good job on that. As far as the rest of the lower receiver here, this thing was full of pips. It's still got a little bit here and there, you can see. Right up and around in here where the magazine would go. Got that buffed out really nice and got all the pitting out of that. And pretty much I did everywhere else. You know, there is a little bit here and there. Now, right up around in these areas where it was milled out. Now, if you look at real Mausers, a lot of those are not perfect in the center of these, especially the wartime Mausers, because whenever they put those things out, they were mass produced. Didn't worry so much about, you know, how pretty they were. They just, you know, milled them out, put them together, and sent them out to the field. I may leave these the way that they are, but I still have a little bit of sanding and maybe some filing to get the rest of these little pits out here and there. Now the Denix emblem, or the stamping, used to be right across here. It said Denix made in Spain. I went ahead and used a file and filed that out to where I made sure that I tried to keep as level as possible, because I didn't want it to be lower right here than what it was everywhere else. See, I need to get that right there out too. But you know, I need a little bit of work right here in this. Now, this little indention right here, I've noticed on a lot of these Denixes, that's there. Up to this point, I haven't looked at any factory pictures to see whether if that's actually there on a real Mauser. I will take a look at it before I actually blue this. I'm probably going to blue it tomorrow. But anyway, that's as far as the lower receiver goes. I'm pretty happy with that overall, except for, like I said, a little bit more work to go. The rear sight here, I did take this down a little bit more. These are pretty crappy. I mean, you know, you can see where they stamped the stampings on there. They're kind of sloppy, but you know, I may eventually change this out for, I know Field Marshal sells some that look a lot better than this. But right now, this will do. The upper receiver here in the barrel, it's pretty much done. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is at this point. It looks pretty good. The barrel, of course, is going to be hidden by the bull barrel attachment and the flash hider, so I wasn't too worried about that, but I'm OCD and I wanted to get it, you know, fairly decent. Here's the rest of the receiver here. I went ahead and got my Dremel out, and these two little half circles right here, they are not there when you buy the kit. So I went ahead and wallered those out. I do not have the extractor design that's right here. I thought about milling it out myself, but I really don't want to screw it up. Of course, I said in one of the other videos that this right here had some raised ears on both sides. I took those down with a grinder on my Dremel, and I countersunk them, which is the way that the real Mausers are. But it's coming together. It's got quite a bit of work left to do on it. Like I said, maybe, well, I said 20-25 minutes earlier. It's probably going to take more. I think probably about an hour's more worth of sanding and buffing and, you know, stuff like that. But it's coming along. You know, it's so far from where it was when I first bought it. I mean, I didn't realize how many pits there were in the metal until I started sanding. And it was atrocious. I mean, it was really bad. And it takes a lot of work to get it to, you know, to look right. But so far, I'm pretty pleased. Like I said, I'm going to get a little bit here take that kind of out, smooth that out a little bit more. And right over here on this side, I'm going to try to hit this a little bit more, and right up in here and maybe down over here. And that's about it. I did a little bit of a circular motion right here with the sandpaper for when I do the mystery disc, whenever I start bluing this thing. Oh, one other thing. So originally my idea was I was going to use some JB Weld and just fill in the Denix Made in Spain stampings right here. Then I started thinking, you know, I'm not wanting to paint this lower receiver. I know a lot of people do, but I'm wanting to blue the whole gun. And I know that the bluing would not stick with the JB Weld and it would look like crap. So that's why I decided to go ahead and just take this down with a file and sandpaper. With sandpaper, I'd use 120. I'd go from that to 220, then to 600, then 1,000. And then I would buff it out with some 000 steel wool. But like I said, it's got quite a bit to go. I'm hoping to have this done here maybe in a couple more days or so. It just depends. I've been off for the last couple of days, so that's why I've had so much time to really put a lot of work into this. But I go back to work tomorrow, so that's going to slow things down a bit. But anyway, I just wanted to give an update, and I will be back shortly to show you some more of what I've done to this. All right, everybody. Well, we're back, and well, here's the finished product after all that work. The only thing left that I want to do to this is there's some brass inserts that I want to get installed in these grips that the grip screws go through. Just kind of adds a little bit more detail to the blaster. But it took 16 hours of grinding, polishing, sanding, filing to get this metal to look decent. Because as you've seen in the first video, and I'm sure you can see it pretty well, these things come really pitted, and they look like crap. I mean, it's a good base gun to start off with, but you know, just if you do one of these, just be prepared on doing a lot of elbow work, because it takes that for sure. In my first video, I mentioned that I was going to grind off this lanyard loop here. Well, I didn't. I left it on there because that's the way the original prop was. And on the magazine well detail down here, I attempted to start doing that, but it did not turn out very well. So I ended up sanding that down and just leaving it. I'm 52 years old, and I just don't have the steady hand to be able to do engraving work like that. Let's see. The grips, I used some mahogany wood stain on those, because the wood, when this originally got this, it was a little too light for my liking, so I just stained them, and then I kind of knocked it off a little bit to, you know, because they were a little too dark. Used some steel wool and just tapered it back just a little bit to get them a little bit lighter. They're a little lighter than what appears in the video here. The trigger, I mentioned that. I ground the inside of that out with a grinding wheel from my Dremel. Made it a little bit thinner because the Denix, you know, these come with the trigger is a little thick going this way. Knocked that back. The hammer, of course, I had mentioned that also. I took some material off the top of that because it had too much of a hump, and I kind of I replicated that off real Mausers. The only thing I didn't do is on the milling areas right here, the milling cutouts. I didn't sand those out perfectly because on the real wartime Mausers, they were not perfect. They mass-produced those to get those out into the war. And I didn't care about this thing being absolutely perfect because nothing in Star Wars is perfect. You know, everything's kind of wonky or dirty or imperfect, and that's what makes Star Wars so awesome. We got the mystery disc here. The heat sink, that's made out of aluminum. It's like anodized aluminum. That's attached with some E6000.
I think they call this the front sight greebly right there. That came from Todd's costume. I put that together also with some E6000. You have to kind of file off the, trying to do this with one hand. You have to kind of file down the top of this because the way this comes, it's a T-track that's underneath there. If you don't know what those are, they're basically what they use for the grips on the lightsabers and on the forward grips on the E11 blasters. And so you have to kind of file that down into like a ramp. And then these pieces right here, these two little pieces, from what I understand, those were like pistons from an engine out of a airplane model or something. Correct me if I'm mistaken down in the comments. The ejection mark right here, again, I don't have the proper equipment to mill that out, and it did not come milled. So what I did is I masked it off the best that I could, and I just blued it. And, it turned out okay. It's not perfect, but at least something's there. One of the things I did notice, and you probably noticed early on in one of the earlier clips that I made, this thing had a lot of mold lines. There was a line that went across the top here, and on the back of the hammer, you could still see it a little bit. Get there, focus there, a little bit, but not very much. There's not very much evidence there, but got a lot of that cleaned up. This is more of an idealized version. It's definitely not, I didn't go for the exact replica look. The crossbar right here doesn't have all the weathering on it. I blued this with some Birchwood Casey Aluminum Black. It took to the Zamic, the material that this is made out of, really well. The problem that I had was, the problem that I had was, so the flash hider and the bull barrel attachment here, they're made out of aluminum. And ironically, the aluminum black didn't want to. It took about 6 to 8 passes of heating up the metal, applying the blue, and then you have to rinse it off to get the chemicals to stop doing their thing, and then you just knock it off a little bit with some steel wool, and then you go over it again. Well, it took me about 6 or 8 times to get it to where, it was all uniform. And then I kind of knocked it back a little bit with some steel wool. You can see a little bit of the wear in the holes here. And I wanted to go for that look. I didn't want it to be, just where it looked like it just came off the showroom or anything like that. But I wanted it to have a little bit of wear here and there. I did the whole gun in blue. I know some people, they paint the receivers black, or they'll paint the lower receiver black and blue the top. I've heard different things about whether or not the real prop was painted or whether or not it was blued. After some of the research that I've done, I'm kind of inclined to think that it was blued. The prop that they used for Han Solo's DL-44 in Star Wars was originally used in a film in 1969. And the pictures that I saw of the gun back then, it looked blued. I like the blued look better. I'm a gun collector by nature, and I just like the blued look. I don't really like guns that are painted. And I had read on the RPF there were some guys that had painted theirs, and the paint just did not want to adhere well to this metal. So I just went ahead and I blued it. Took about 3 hours total for that. Let's see what else. That's pretty much it. I mean, I don't want to make this video super long because it's Christmas, and I just wanted to throw this video together real fast to just to show this thing before I get too busy for the holidays, because it's like 4 days away from Christmas, and I'm going to be really busy. But this thing was a blast to make. Just to give you a tiny bit of quick history, I was 6 years old when the first Star Wars movie came out. My mom took me and my sister on opening day to see it. We had to stand outside through 2 showings before we got in to watch it. And, back then, you know, those movies, I mean, there was nothing like them made. Everybody went to go see it. And it was in theaters for, in some cases, in some places, for over a year. I know, you know, I live here in Tulsa, and it was in the theaters. All three of the movies that were in the theaters for months and months and months. In 1980, my mom and dad bought me a Han Solo blaster. It was made by Kenner. It was all plastic, of course. Looked just like this one. That's kind of the reason why I think I went with the Hero version, not the Greedo Killer, because this is the one that I most associate Han Solo with, especially out of the first film. But yeah, I'm not going to keep on rambling on, but this is it. I highly recommend doing this. You know, this came from Blaster Factory. I think they put together a pretty good kit. I paid I think $300 for the kit. And it was a lot of fun, and I highly recommend doing it if that's something that you want to do. It turns out, you know, looking pretty cool, I think. Really rewarding at the end. Tons of work that goes into making it look like this. But anyway, I'm going to cut this video loose, and I appreciate you all watching. As you can tell, it's Christmas, and here in a few more days, I'm going to get my living room looking back to normal. I've got some prop helmets that has direct screen lineage to the films, and I've got a real Graflex lightsaber that I converted over that I'm going to make a video of as soon as I get everything back out. And I hope you all like and subscribe my channel so you can check out some more future videos. I suck at making videos, and but I hope you all enjoyed watching this, and I hope you all enjoy some future videos that I have coming. You all have a Merry Christmas, and God bless you, and take care. Thanks for watching.